The Alteration Code 2 by Irwin Montrose. Recap the Alteration Code. Investigative journalist Olivia Carter, once a renowned truth seeker, found herself drawn into a deadly conspiracy when she uncovered a Vatican secret hidden for centuries. While traveling on the Eurostar, Olivia stumbled upon the brutal murder of Father Moreau, a priest who had unearthed forbidden knowledge, Bible pages that documented the Vatican's ability to alter reality itself.
With the help of Dr. Richard Elms, a controversial atheist author, and Bishop Michael Laurent, a high-ranking church official with questionable loyalties, Olivia uncovered a terrifying truth centuries ago. The church had used a relic to rewrite the foundations of Christianity. The Vatican's hidden power to reshape history had been protected by assassins like Matteo Ricci, a relentless enforcer who would stop at nothing to retrieve the missing pages.
Their chase led them through Paris and into the shadowy underbelly of Vatican intrigue. When Ricci was finally cornered, he revealed that the pages contained proof of the first rewriting, an event so monumental that if exposed, it would shake the very fabric of faith and history. But before they could extract the full truth, Ricci was killed, and Olivia barely escaped with the pages in hand.
Now, with the Vatican's forces closing in and the mystery of the relics still unsolved, Olivia, Elms, and Laurent must go deeper than ever before, to the heart of Vatican City, where the relic itself lies buried beneath St. Peter's, guarded by dark religious forces that answer to no one but God himself. Chapter 1. Nowhere is safe. The streets of Paris blurred past Olivia Carter as she ran, her breath sharp in the frigid night air. The worn Bible pages clutched in her hands felt heavier than paper. They were history, secrets, and damnation all at once. Behind her, Elms kept pace, his silver hair matted with sweat.
"We need to disappear,"
Laurent hissed, urging them into a side alley. The bishop's face was pale, his hands trembling.
"If they catch us, we are dead."
Ricci was gone. The Vatican had sent its attack dogs, and the moment they realized the pages hadn't been burned alongside his corpse, they'd be hunting again. Elms dragged Olivia toward a doorway half hidden beneath graffiti-streaked brick. Laurent hammered his fist against the metal. After a tense beat, the door cracked open. A pair of wary eyes peered out.
"Monique sent us,"
Laurent said quickly. The door swung open, just wide enough for them to slip inside. The air smelled of damp stone and burnt paper. A single bulb flickered overhead. Their host, a gaunt man with ink-stained fingers, locked the door behind them.
"You have little time,"
he said, voice rasping with age.
Who are you?
Olivia sucked in a breath.
"Jacques Roux,
The man said, motioning for them to follow him down a narrow corridor.
a historian, a believer, and like you, a hunted soul."
The corridor opened into a chamber lined with bookshelves stacked high with ancient texts. An old wooden table sat at its center, covered in maps, photographs, and scraps of yellowed parchment. Jacques gestured toward it.
"If you wish to understand the Vatican's power, you must understand its history. We don't have time for a lesson."
Laurent hesitated.
"Then you have already lost."
Jacques smiled grimly.
We need to know what they mean, what the Vatican is hiding.
Olivia stepped forward, placing the Bible pages on the table. Jacques studied the faded Latin script, his expression darkening.
"What you hold is not just a historical record.
He murmured.
It is evidence of the first rewriting, proof that the Vatican holds the power to alter reality itself."
Elms ran a hand over his face.
"Yeah, we figured that part out. What we don't know is how."
Jacques' fingers traced the fragile ink.
"Through an artifact, a relic, one that was used centuries ago to rewrite the very foundations of Christianity. That relic is locked away in the Vatican,
Laurent tensed.
and you must steal it."
Jacques lifted his gaze. A cold silence filled the chamber. Elms let out a bitter laugh.
"Are you insane? We barely made it out of the last mess alive, and now you want us to waltz into the Vatican and take the very thing they'd kill to protect?
Jacques leaned in.
If you do not, the Vatican will hunt you until you are erased from history. They will burn every trace of you, rewrite every event, until even your own memories betray you. This is not just about exposing the truth anymore. It is about survival."
Olivia's stomach twisted. She had spent her life chasing corruption, fighting the powerful, exposing lies. But this was something else entirely.
Where is it?
She asked quietly.
"Deep beneath Vatican City, in the catacombs of St. Peter, guarded by those who have given their lives to keep it hidden, and led by a man even the Pope fears."
Jacques exhaled.
Cardinal Montesi,
Laurent closed his eyes.
a man of darkness, a zealot who believes he serves God's will, no matter how much blood must be spilled to protect it.
Jacques nodded. Elms sighed.
So, let me get this straight. We need to break into the most heavily guarded religious site in the world, steal a relic that can rewrite history, and somehow get out alive?
Jacques smirked.
Yes, but you are forgetting one thing.
What?
Olivia asked warily.
The relic can be used again.
Jacques' eyes gleamed.
You mean we could rewrite reality ourselves?
A chill ran down Olivia's spine.
And that, my dear, is why the Vatican fears you.
Jacques nodded. The weight of the truth pressed against her ribs. She looked at Elms, then at Laurent. They were in this now. There was no turning back.
Then we go to Rome,
She said, her voice steady.
and we end this.
Chapter 2, Into the Lion's Den. The city of Rome was a labyrinth of history and power, its streets whispering secrets of centuries past. Olivia, Elms, and Laurent moved through the crowded airport, passports clenched tightly in their hands. Getting into Italy had been the easy part. What lay ahead would be far more dangerous.
We need an entry point.
Elms muttered as they stepped outside, the evening air thick with the scent of stone and old rain.
No way we're just walking into the Vatican.
Laurent nodded.
I may know someone who can get us inside. A former priest excommunicated for asking too many questions, but he won't help for free.
Olivia exhaled.
Then we find him fast, before they find us.
The hunt for Cardinal Montesi had begun. Chapter 3, The Reluctant Ally. Rome was alive with the hum of history and the ever-watchful eyes of the Vatican. Disguised as clergy, Olivia, Elms, and Laurent moved carefully through the city streets, their forged credentials tucked beneath their robes. They were heading toward a man who had once walked the Vatican's halls, but had since turned his back on its power, Father Gabriel Valenti. Valenti's voice was tinged with bitterness as they entered the dimly lit chapel.
You have some nerve coming here,
He muttered, seeing Laurent.
and bringing them.
Laurent exhaled.
We need your help.
Valenti's eyes darkened.
The last time I helped the church, I lost everything.
We're not the church, we're trying to stop them.
Olivia stepped forward. Before Valenti could respond, heavy footsteps echoed in the chapel. The Vatican had found them. The confrontation had begun. Chapter 4, Fire in the Chapel. The first shot shattered a stained glass window. Shards of coloured glass rained down like falling embers as Olivia and Elms ducked behind the pews. Father Valenti, his face pale with shock, hesitated only for a moment before grabbing a concealed handgun from beneath his vestments.
They found us faster than I expected.
Laurent cursed. 3 men in tactical gear entered the chapel, their movements precise. Olivia recognized the emblem on their sleeves, the Vatican's elite enforcers. Montesi wasn't taking any chances. Valenti fired first, the crack of his gun echoing through the sacred space. One enforcer staggered, but didn't fall.
We need to get out.
Olivia hissed. Elms grabbed her arm.
The side exit move?
They sprinted toward the rear of the chapel, bullets splintering wood and ricocheting off stone. Valenti followed, his expression grim.
If you expect me to run, I expect answers.
You'll get them if we survive, Olivia shot back. The alley was narrow and dark. As they ran, sirens wailed in the distance. The Vatican was hunting them. They had to disappear now.
We go to ground.
Laurent panted.
Montesi won't stop until we're dead.
Valenti glanced at Olivia.
Then you better make it worth my while.
They vanished into the darkness, the Vatican's enforcers closing in behind them. Chapter 5, Shadows Beneath Rome. The stale air of the catacombs pressed against Olivia's skin as she and her team descended deeper beneath the streets of Rome. Flickering flashlight beams carved through the darkness, illuminating ancient carvings and skeletal remains. Dust swirled in the stagnant air, disturbed by their hurried footsteps.
We can't stay here long.
Elms muttered, scanning their surroundings.
If Montesi's men don't find us, this place will collapse on its own.
Laurent ran a hand along the wall, deciphering Latin inscriptions etched into the stone.
These tunnels date back centuries. If we follow the right path, we can reach an old exit point beneath the Vatican Library.
Valenti adjusted the strap of his bag, his face shadowed in the dim light.
Before we move forward, you need to understand something.
What is it?
Olivia turned to him, her pulse steady despite the weight of their situation.
The relic, the Vatican's greatest secret, is not a matter of faith, it's technology.
Valenti exhaled.
I don't know the full details, but I've seen hints of it. Old Vatican records mention a device, not divine intervention, but something engineered. The Church has used it for centuries to erase inconvenient truths.
A chill ran down Olivia's spine.
And you're just telling us this now?
I wasn't sure until now, Valenti admitted. But the way the Vatican has reacted, the way Montesi is escalating, confirms my suspicions. They don't fear you exposing the truth. They fear you finding the device. A sudden sound echoed through the tunnel, footsteps, slow and deliberate. They weren't alone. Elms extinguished his flashlight, plunging them into darkness. Olivia held her breath, listening. The air was thick with silence until a whisper drifted through the cavernous space.
You should not have come here.
The voice was calm, controlled, too controlled. Olivia's stomach clenched. Montesi had sent someone. A covert operative, someone trained in eliminating problems without leaving a trace. Laurent motioned for them to move. But as they crept forward, something shifted beneath Olivia's boot. The ground gave way slightly, releasing a soft click. A trap. Before she could react, the stone floor collapsed beneath her, and she plunged into darkness. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs. Dust clouded her vision as she landed in a chamber beneath the tunnel. Ancient wooden beams groaned above her, threatening to give way.
Elmty.
She called, coughing as she tried to regain her bearings. A rope dropped from the hole above.
Grab it.
Elms's voice came through.
We need to move now.
As Olivia reached for the rope, movement flickered in the shadows. A figure stood at the edge of the chamber, watching. A woman clad in black, her face obscured by a hood.
You seek what you do not understand,
she said, her voice eerily calm.
Turn back, or you will not leave these catacombs alive.
Montesi's operative. Olivia's grip on the rope tightened.
Not an option.
The woman stepped forward, and the last thing Olivia saw before scrambling up the rope was the glint of a blade in the dim light. Chapter 6, The Last Passage. The glint of the blade in the dim light sent Olivia's instincts into overdrive. She spun just as the Vatican operative lunged. The woman was fast, trained, lethal, but Olivia had survived too much to fall here. She twisted, knocking the assassin's wrist aside. The blade scraped against the stone, sending a shrill echo through the chamber.
Elms, help me.
Olivia shouted. She didn't get back up. Breathing heavily, Olivia looked up at the gaping hole above.
We need to get out of here.
As she reached for the rope, something caught her eye, etched into the wall behind where the assassin had fallen. Ancient symbols, partially eroded by time, arranged in a circular pattern. At its center was an engraving resembling a mechanical gear.
Elms,
she whispered.
Look at this.
Elms climbed down, tracing the symbols with his fingers.
This isn't just scripture, this is technical.
His voice was thick with realization.
This could be a blueprint.
A deep rumbling shook the chamber. Dust rained from the ceiling, and cracks spiderwebbed along the stone walls.
We're out of time,
Laurent shouted from above.
The whole place is coming down.
Olivia quickly snapped a picture of the engraving with her phone, before scrambling up the rope. Valenti was right behind her, with Elms barely clearing the edge as a cascade of rock collapsed into the chamber below. The tunnels trembled, ancient supports giving way.
We have to keep moving,
Laurent urged, leading them through the narrowing passages. The air filled with dust, making it nearly impossible to see. The ground beneath them trembled as another collapse echoed behind them. Their only option was forward. After what felt like an eternity, they found a rusted iron gate at the end of the passage. Laurent rammed his shoulder against it, forcing it open. They stumbled into the night air, gasping as the cool breeze hit their faces. Rome spread out before them, bathed in the glow of streetlights. Behind them, the catacombs groaned before finally caving in completely, sealing whatever lay beneath in stone and rubble. Elms doubled over, coughing.
That was too close.
Valenti turned to Olivia.
You took a picture of that engraving?
She nodded, showing him the screen.
It has to be connected to the relic.
Valenti's face was grim.
Then we just lost our best chance at understanding it.
Before Olivia could respond, Laurent's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening.
It's worse than we thought.
He held up the screen for them to see, a breaking news alert flashing across Italian media. Olivia's face filled the frame, alongside Valenti, Elms, and Laurent. The headline blared,
Fugitives wanted, conspiracy to attack Vatican City.
Montesi had escalated the game. They weren't just being hunted in the shadows anymore. They were the most wanted people in Italy.
Then we disappear. We find out what's on this engraving, and we bring the truth to light.
Olivia clenched her jaw. The car sped through the winding roads of the Italian countryside, headlights cutting through the darkness as Olivia gripped the wheel. The safe house was an old farmhouse, long abandoned and nestled deep in the hills beyond Rome. It was their best chance at disappearing.
We need to stay off-grid,
Laurent said, staring at his phone.
Montesi has pushed the media into overdrive. Every news station is painting us as dangerous radicals plotting an attack against the Vatican.
Valenti shook his head.
It's worse than that. They're leveraging religious sentiment, making it look like we're enemies of faith itself. They don't need bullets if they can turn the world against us.
Elms sighed.
So we're fugitives now, officially.
Olivia clenched her jaw.
Then we make ourselves ghosts. We lay low, gather what we need, and find someone who can decipher that engraving.
Laurent looked up.
I might have an idea.
They pulled into the farmhouse driveway, dust kicking up as they stepped out into the cool night air. Inside, the building smelled of aged wood and neglect, but it would serve its purpose. Olivia set her phone on the table and tapped through messages. Laurent leaned against the wall.
There's a man, Dr. Enrico Vasari. He's a specialist in ancient technological artifacts, previously consulted by the Vatican itself.
Valenti frowned.
If he worked with them, he might turn us in.
Laurent nodded.
Or he might be the only person who truly understands what we're dealing with.
Olivia exhaled.
And then we have no choice, we Vasari.
Before they could discuss further, Elms glanced out the window.
We might have a problem.
A flickering light in the distance. Then another. Torches. A group of people was making its way toward the farmhouse. Laurent grabbed a pair of binoculars and cursed under his breath.
It's not the police, it's civilians.
Valenti stiffened.
The media has done its job. They think we're terrorists.
A shout carried through the night. More voices joined in. They were chanting, calling for their capture. Olivia's pulse quickened.
We need to get out of here before they set fire to this place.
Elms grabbed their bags.
Then we move now.
They slipped out the back, disappearing into the dense forest beyond the farmhouse. The Vatican's influence had stretched further than they imagined, and now the world was hunting them. Their only hope was Dr. Enrico Vasari. If they could find him before the Vatican did, they might still have a chance to uncover the truth. But as the torches behind them grew brighter, Olivia knew one thing.
Time was running out.
Chapter 8. The Relic Unveiled. The safe house was a thing of the past. Olivia and her team had barely escaped the mob in the countryside, their path now leading them to a secluded villa outside Florence. The home belonged to Dr. Enrico Vasari, an expert in ancient technology, once a consultant for the Vatican, until he questioned too much. Laurent knocked at the heavy wooden door. Minutes passed before it creaked open, revealing an elderly man with wary, deep-set eyes. Vasari's gaze flicked between them before he scowled.
I know who you are,
he muttered.
And I know what you've brought me.
He turned on his heel, leaving the door open just enough for them to follow. Inside, the villa was a maze of old books and half-disassembled machinery. Vasari walked to a large wooden desk, already covered in blueprints and manuscripts. He gestured at Olivia. Olivia hesitated, then pulled out her phone and displayed the image of the engraving. Vasari's expression darkened. He leaned forward, tracing a finger over the ancient symbols.
This,
he murmured,
confirms everything.
Elm stepped closer.
What exactly are we looking at?
Vasari sighed.
The relic is no divine artifact. It's a device, a machine, centuries old, designed to manipulate written records on a molecular level. The Vatican has used it for generations to rewrite historical documents, alter testimonies, and even erase entire figures from history.
Laurent exhaled sharply.
So it's true.
Vasari nodded.
It operates using an unknown but highly sophisticated technology, something closer to quantum manipulation than anything else we've ever seen. If activated, it doesn't just edit records, it makes the new version the only truth.
Olivia clenched her fists.
And the Vatican still has it.
Before Vasari could answer, a loud crash erupted from the back of the villa. Glass shattered, and heavy boots thudded against the wooden floors. Shadows moved in the hallway.
They found us.
Valenti hissed, drawing his weapon.
We need to get out, now.
Olivia grabbed Vasari's arm. Vasari's eyes widened in fear, but he nodded. He pressed a hidden panel on his desk, revealing a trapdoor beneath a rug.
This way,
He whispered.
it leads to the old wine tunnels. If we hurry, we might escape.
Gunfire erupted, splintering the wooden beams above them. Laurent covered their retreat as they scrambled into the narrow passage, Vasari last to descend. The moment he sealed the trapdoor above, they were plunged into darkness.
Interpol will be on our trail next, won't they?
Olivia breathed heavily. Vasari nodded grimly.
And not just them. Montesi won't stop. Now that you know the truth, they will hunt you to the ends of the earth.
Olivia tightened her grip on her bag.
Then we take the fight to them.
The tunnels stretched before them, offering escape, but they all knew the truth.
The battle was only just beginning.
Chapter 9, Racing Against Silence. The old wine tunnels beneath Vasari's villa stretched for miles, offering them a brief moment of respite. Olivia wiped dust from her forehead as they moved swiftly through the dim-lit passageway, Vasari leading the way. They needed to leave Italy before Montesi could tighten his grip further.
We head for Switzerland.
Laurent said.
From there, we can regroup and plan our next move.
Elms muttered, his eyes scanning the shadows.
Assuming we make it that far, Interpol is after us now, and Montesi isn't going to stop until we're erased, along with any trace of the relic.
Valenti adjusted his pack.
And yet, we have something they don't, the truth.
By morning, they had secured transport, an old smuggler's route leading north through the Alps. It would be slow and dangerous, but it was their best shot at avoiding detection. As they boarded the vehicle, Olivia's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number.
I don't believe them. I need to talk. Geneva.
She showed it to Laurent.
Interpol?
He nodded.
Someone in the agency is questioning Montesi's narrative. If we can convince them, we might gain an ally.
Vasari folded his arms.
That's a big if.
As they crossed the Italian border into Switzerland, news reports flooded in. The Vatican had shifted tactics. Rather than simply hunting them, they were erasing all records of the relic's existence.
Libraries, digital archives, private collections.
Vasari murmured, scrolling through his tablet.
They're eliminating everything. Soon the world will forget the relic ever existed.
Elms clenched his fists.
Then we have to act fast.
They reached Geneva under the cover of night, settling in a discreet safe house. Olivia glanced at her phone. Another message from the unknown Interpol agent.
Meet me at St. Peter's Cathedral at midnight. Come alone.
Valenti scoffed.
That's a trap.
Or an opportunity.
Olivia countered.
If someone inside Interpol doubts the Vatican's claims, we need to hear them out.
Laurent hesitated.
We need to be smart. Montesi isn't just silencing records, he's tightening his grip on the world's intelligence networks.
So we don't give him time to win.
Olivia said.
We expose the truth before he can erase it.
Elm.
Which means finding more proof.
Vasari sat up.
There is one more place. Another historic site tied to the relic.
They turned to him, waiting.
The Great Library of St. Gall.
Vasari said.
It holds one of the oldest surviving copies of the Vatican's hidden documents. If Montesi hasn't reached it yet, we might still have a chance.
Olivia's pulse quickened. They had a plan, but the clock was ticking. Chapter 10, The Unseen Hand. The towering facade of St. Peter's Cathedral loomed over Olivia as she approached alone, her breath steady but her mind racing. Meeting the Interpol agent here was a risk, but it was one she had to take. The message had been brief, cryptic, yet promising. Inside, the vast interior echoed with whispers of prayer and the flickering of candlelight. Olivia slid into a pew near the rear, scanning the space. Moments later, a man in a dark trench coat sat beside her, his hands clasped in front of him.
I don't have long.
He murmured without turning.
You were right about the Vatican.
Olivia's heart pounded.
Then help me prove it.
The agent exhaled.
I don't have direct access, but I've seen the files Montesi doesn't want anyone to find. The erasure of records, the suppression of whistleblowers. It's all real. There's even chatter about eliminating you entirely.
A chill ran through her.
An assassination attempt.
He nodded.
Sooner rather than later.
What do you need from me?
She swallowed.
Proof. Hard proof. If you get that, I can ensure it reaches the right hands before Montesi buries it.
A sharp noise echoed through the cathedral. Footsteps, too deliberate. The agent tensed.
You need to leave, now.
Olivia stood, forcing herself to move slowly. Just as she reached the exit, a shot rang out. Pain lanced through her arm as she stumbled forward. The bullet had grazed her shoulder. Chaos erupted in the cathedral, screams, running footsteps. Olivia pushed past the panicked crowd, her instincts taking over. Outside, Elms and Laurent were waiting in a getaway car.
Go, go.
She shouted, clutching her bleeding arm as she dove in. As the car sped away, Laurent grimaced.
Montesi isn't playing around anymore.
Elms checked her wound.
You're lucky. It's shallow, but we need to get you patched up.
Olivia gritted her teeth.
We don't have time. We leaked the documents now.
Vasari, seated in the back, pulled out his laptop.
I have just enough to get people asking questions.
Within minutes, snippets of the engraving, historical documents, and whispers of the Vatican's ability to rewrite history were uploaded to various social media accounts and sent anonymously to journalists. It wasn't everything, but it was enough to spark a global conversation. News agencies picked up the story within the hour. Hashtags exploded. The Vatican scrambled to control the narrative, but the momentum had begun shifting. Elms read a tweet aloud. Laurent sighed.
Now we've made ourselves even bigger targets.
Olivia tightened her grip.
Then let's make sure we finish this.
Vasari nodded.
The Library of St. Gall. If we infiltrate it, we might find exactly what we need.
A tense silence filled the car. They all knew the truth.
This was no longer about running, it was about winning.
Chapter 11. Beneath the Scholar's Gaze. The Great Library of St. Gall was a monument to history itself, its grand wooden halls lined with centuries of knowledge. Olivia adjusted her glasses and straightened her blazer, taking on the persona of a visiting researcher. Next to her, Laurent and Vasari walked with careful precision, their new forged identities firmly in place. We're here for the restricted archives. Laurent informed the librarian at the front desk, sliding forward a stack of official-looking documents.
Dr. Vasari is compiling a comparative study on theological anomalies.
The librarian eyed them suspiciously before nodding.
You have 2 hours.
They moved swiftly through the aisles, their fingers trailing over ancient tomes until they reached the back section of the library. We need to find the documents before Montesi's men show up. Olivia whispered. Elms, standing watch near the entrance, muttered into the earpiece.
We're on borrowed time. 2 men just walked in, suits, no books, definitely not scholars.
Olivia scanned the restricted section. Then she saw it, an old manuscript, bound in fading leather, its spine marked with a symbol identical to the one from the engraving in the catacombs.
This is it,
she whispered, carefully pulling it from the shelf.
Vasari, what does it say?
Vasari flipped through the pages, his fingers tracing the delicate script. His breath hitched.
This confirms everything. The relic was not divine. It was a device of human design meant to control historical records. The Vatican has rewritten entire events shaping belief itself.
Laurent tensed.
Then we have our proof.
Elm's voice crackled in their ears.
We've got a problem. More of Montesi's men and they're armed.
The first shot shattered a stained glass window. The library erupted in chaos. Patrons screamed and ducked for cover as the assassins advanced. Olivia clutched the manuscript to her chest as Vasari grabbed her arm.
We need to move now.
Laurent fired a warning shot into the air, forcing the assassins to hesitate.
Cover us!
The team sprinted through the maze of bookshelves, dodging gunfire. Just as they reached the emergency exit, a black SUV screeched to a halt outside. More Vatican enforcers poured out, blocking their escape. Then suddenly sirens. A commanding voice rang out.
Drop your weapons.
The Interpol agent Olivia had met at the cathedral stepped forward, his badge raised.
These men are under investigation for international crimes. Stand down or we will open fire.
Montesi's men exchanged glances. Then, one by one, they lowered their weapons. Breathing heavily, Olivia turned to the agent.
Took you long enough.
He smirked.
Figured I'd return the favor.
Laurent glanced at Olivia.
Montesi won't let this go. He'll find another way.
The agent nodded.
We'll protect you as best we can, but you're walking into a trap.
Olivia exhaled.
We know, but it's the only way to end this.
Vasari tightened his grip on the manuscript.
Then we go to the Vatican.
The die was cast. The final battle was upon them. Chapter 12. Descent into the Shadows. The air around Vatican City was thick with tension. Olivia crouched behind a stone ledge along the ancient perimeter wall, the dim glow of security lights casting elongated shadows across the cobblestone paths. This was no official visit, no diplomatic cover. Their entry would be silent, dangerous, and entirely illegal. Elms adjusted his gear, whispering into the comm.
We have about 20 minutes before the patrol loops back around. After that, we're on borrowed time.
Laurent motioned for them to move. They scaled the wall, slipping into the Vatican gardens, where centuries-old hedgerows concealed their advance. Vasari followed closely, keeping the fragile manuscript pressed to his chest. They had secured proof of the relic's history. Now, they needed to find it before Montesi wiped it from existence. Inside the Basilica, hidden corridors stretched like veins beneath the sacred halls. Using a stolen blueprint, they navigated past checkpoints, descending deeper beneath the cathedral. A sudden noise halted them, boots striking stone fast, heavy.
They know we're here,
Elms muttered. Gunfire erupted from the end of the corridor. Olivia and her team darted for cover behind an ancient pillar as bullets ricocheted off stone. Vatican enforcers, elite, relentless and deadly, had been waiting for them.
They were ready for us.
Laurent returned fire, dropping one of the attackers before ducking back. Through the comms, the sharp voice of the Interpol agent crackled.
Hold tight. We have teams moving in on the outer perimeter. We'll buy you time. Get to the chamber.
Easier said than done.
Olivia growled, ducking as more bullets tore through the air.
Move.
Vasari sprinted ahead, leading them into a narrow passage. The air grew thick with dampness as they descended a spiral staircase, each step taking them closer to the crypt beneath St. Peter's Basilica. The moment their feet hit the ancient stone floor, the gunfire ceased.
You should have left this alone, Miss Carter.
Montesi, emerging from the shadows, flanked by his most ruthless enforcers, the Cardinal's eyes glowed with a fervent certainty.
You do not understand the power you are toying with.
Olivia stood firm, blood trickling from a graze on her arm.
We understand enough. This relic, your so-called divine instrument, is nothing more than a machine built to control history. You've used it to shape the world in your image.
Montesi stepped forward, hands clasped behind his back.
You speak as though history is not a weapon in itself. The people do not want truth, Olivia. They want certainty, purpose. We have given them that for centuries, and you seek to destroy it?
Laurent clenched his fists.
You are not God.
Montesi smirked.
And yet history remembers only what we allow it to remember.
Behind him, an ancient mechanism, gears, levers, a construct of an era long buried, stood embedded in the chamber wall, the relic, a machine of reality-altering power. I am offering you a choice. Montesi continued, his voice measured, almost persuasive.
Join me. Help shape the world into something better, or become another forgotten page erased like so many before you.
Olivia's heart pounded. The relic's power was immense. Could they really destroy it? Or was there another way? A silent moment stretched between them. Then Laurent whispered,
We're out of time.
From above, the distant shouts of Interpol agents and Vatican loyalists grew louder. The final battle had begun. Chapter 13, Truth Unveiled. The chamber trembled as Interpol agents clashed with Vatican enforcers above, the distant echoes of gunfire and shouted orders rippling through the stone walls. Olivia stood before the relic, a machine older than any written record, its gears frozen in time, a monument to power unseen. Montesi stepped forward, his voice even, unwavering.
You cannot begin to understand what you are doing. The world does not want truth, it wants stability.
Olivia met his gaze.
Stability built on lies. How many lives have you erased? How many truths rewritten?
Montesi exhaled.
History is a weapon, Olivia. We have wielded it carefully for the good of mankind.
Laurent spoke, voice resolute.
You mean for the good of yourself?
Without hesitation, Olivia stepped forward, placing her hands on the relic's worn surface. Vasari had decoded the mechanism. It was a tool, not of faith, but of manipulation, and she would use it one last time. A hum pulsed beneath her fingers as she activated the interface. Images flickered, histories rewritten, secrets buried. But this time, Olivia did not erase. She revealed. A chorus of alarms erupted through the Basilica. Montesi's face paled as his empire unraveled before him.
You fool!
He roared, lunging toward the machine. A shot rang out. An Interpol officer had stepped forward, gun raised.
Enough.
Montesi collapsed to his knees, hands raised in surrender. The enforcers who had once protected him hesitated, weapons lowering as they realized their war had been lost. He was led away in handcuffs, his fall from grace already broadcasting across the world. The relic let out a final hiss before falling silent, its purpose fulfilled. Laurent turned to Olivia.
What do we do with it?
Olivia took a deep breath.
We hide it. No one should have this power.
Vasari nodded.
There is a place, a vault beneath Geneva. No government, no religion. No man will ever access it again.
The relic would disappear, its legacy sealed away. But its truth, that would live on. Epilogue: A New Dawn. Weeks later, Olivia sat before the world's press, the glare of cameras illuminating her face. Behind her, Laurent and Vasari stood as silent sentinels to history.
The Vatican has shaped reality for centuries.
Olivia declared.
But today, the world chooses its own truth.
News reports ran with the story, the Vatican conspiracy exposed. Protests erupted, calls for reform, for justice, for change swept across continents. Faith had not died, but it had evolved. As Olivia stepped away from the podium, Elms smirked.
So what's next?
She smiled.
History has a way of repeating itself. Maybe this time, we'll get it right.
The camera flashes faded, the world shifting on its axis. The relic was gone, Montesi disgraced, and Olivia Carter, a journalist once hunted, had rewritten history the right way. For the first time in centuries, truth belonged to everyone. The end. From my listening library. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and activate the bell so you are informed each time we publish. Oh, and if you could tell your friends, that would be tickety-boo.